So, our chapter is Lesson 7, which is Organization and Analysis of Assessment Data from Alternative Methods. So, here are the objectives. In this lesson, you are expected to use quantitative analysis to report the results of alternative methods of assessment. Present and summarize results of alternative methods of assessment to make them useful for learners, and create a set of criteria, factors, and characteristics to be assessed using alternative methods. You are considered successful in this culminating performance task if you have satisfied at least the following indicators of success. So here are the indicators of success. First is use quantitative analysis to report results. So the indicators of success is all the possible considerations in analyzing the data are met, which include descriptive and inferential techniques to establish validity and reliability of the results. Second, present and summarize the results. All necessary information contained in the assessment results are appropriate in order to describe what the learner can do. Create a set of criteria, factors, and characteristics for alternative methods. All the possible considerations in selecting the criteria are met. So how do we quantify results from rubrics? So in the creation of rubrics, there are skills that represent the degree of performance. Then this degree of performance can range from high to low degree of proficiency. So here are examples of the degree of proficiency with their corresponding points. Points depend on the quality of the behavior shown by the learner's performance. So the reliability of the assigned points can be determined when the scoring of two or more observers to the same behavior is consistent. So such as procedures entails the use of multiple raters or judges to rate the performance. So it depends the judges on how they rate the performance of the learners.
So hi everyone, I am Jezreel Kalihisan and I am going to report that is assigned to me, which is my part to this topic. Now, it says here that if a performance task was demonstrated by 5 students and there are 3 raters, the rubric used a scale of 1 to 4 where 4 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. So, as for the table, no, makita niyo no, there are 5 demonstrators which are the A, B, C, D, E and 3 raters kanang 1, 2, 3, rater 1, rater 2, and rater 3. We have there the sum of ratings, the D, and the D squared. Now, nakita niyo no na 4 ang pinaka dako na rating ng mga raters and 1 is the lowest. Since as it said kaina, the rubric used a scale of 1 to 4 where 4 is, ang value niya is highest and 1 is lowest. Now, for our sum of ratings, naanganha for example sa demonstrator A or the first demonstrator, it is only by adding ang iya nakuha na score from the rater 1 to the rater 3, which is the 4 plus 4 plus 3, and that is the sum is the 11, in which same ra gihapon ang process niya sa other demonstrator. So before kita mo kadto sa D na column, ato na i-add ang sum of ratings ng every demonstrators, and that is 11 plus 8 plus 11 plus 8 plus 4, and the sum of those numbers kay ato i-divide kung pila sila ka demonstrators, diba they are 5 demonstrators. So the answer of those numbers, the answer or the sum of the ratings divided to kung pila sila, and that is divided to 5, the answer would be 8.4, and amo yaon answer sa ubos. And that is also called as the mean. Now, to get the D, it is said that the mean is subtracted to each of the sum of ratings. Now, to get the D, we have to subtract the sum of rating ng every demonstrator to the mean. For example, sa first demonstrator or the demonstrator A, 11 minus 8.4, and the answer would be 2.6. And amura gihapon ang isa process to get the other D of other demonstrators. Now for the D squared, it is just by squaring the D. It is just only by squaring the 2.6, the negative zero point 0.4, the 2.6, and so on. And to get that 33.2 sa ubos, it is just by adding the squares. It is just by adding the 6.76.16, 6.76.16, and 19.36, and that would be 33.2. So now, the mean and summation of square differences are substituted in the Kendall's coefficient formula. And in the formula, m is the numbers of raters. And ganang naguna, that is the formula. And the second, kanang 12, it is already given. The 33.2, it is the summation of the squares kadtong sa table, kadtong sa d squared sa pinakakilid, the summation of those numbers. Then, sa ubos kanang 3 squared, kanang 3, maunang ang 3 raters, and if I'm not mistaken, kanang 5, these are the 5 demonstrations or demonstrators in which has an answer of 0.37. So now from the book, Kendall's coefficient of 0.38 is an estimation of the agreement of the 3 raters in the 5 demonstrations. But there is a moderate concordance among the 3 raters because the coefficient is far from 1. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Kai. I think there are various of kinds of agreement depending sa ato makuha na answer from using this Kendall's formula. And since our answer is far from 1, then our agreement is a moderate concordance. So now, let us proceed to how do we quantify results from scales and checklists. So scales could be a measure of non-cognitive dimensions of students' behavior. When the items in the scale are answered by students, the response format quantifies the behavior measured by the scale. The types of response format vary depending on the nature of the behavior measured. So in quantifying results from scales, it is not just only about measuring the cognitive dimensions of students, but as well as the non-cognitive dimensions, in which also refer to the students' behaviors. So and now we have here the Likert scale. The Likert scale is used to measure students' favorability and unfavorability toward a certain object. The favorability will depend on the degree or of agreement or disagreement to a standpoint. So sa inina scale, at the end ng inina scale, makita diri ang favorability or unfavorability ng mga students depending sa ila respond. For example sa itong example na statement, the policeman is helpful in the street. Since inisiya na scale is about favorability and unfavorability, so of course ang iya mga pilianan from the statement, it is strongly agree, agree ba, disagree, or strongly agree. So to quantify the scales, a numerical score can be assigned to each of the responses. For example, 4 points can be assigned to strongly agree, 3 points for agree, 2 points for disagree, and 1 point for strongly agree. The total score for the overall scale, the points for each of them can be summated. The total score is a representation of the overall trait being measured. Usually, high scores in a Likert scale represents favorable attitude, and low scores represent unfavorable attitude. So, sa ini mga pilianan, so pwede sa mahataga ng bisan ano na value. So, strongly agree, it could be 4, agree 3, disagree 2, and strongly agree, it could be 1. Depende ra sa. But, and overall, sa pagsam na zaon sa summation na nan zaon ila responses, mag-result yun sa zanan either favor ba or unfavor. So now let us proceed to the verbal frequency scale. So when you say verbal frequency scale, this is used to measure how often a habit is done. The items here are measures of a habit. So when we say habit, it is somewhat like a routine na ginahimo ng isa ka tao. And when we say frequency, it is somewhat like also na murag how often or how consistent ang isa ka tawo na himuon ang zaon na routine reading a book. So ang pilianan, always, often, sometimes, rarely, and never. So bisan bisan ono bisan hain nganhi na choices ang iya chikan or pilion, mag-result gihapon sa ng either consistent ba siya or dili. So, similar to the idea of quantifying a Likert scale, a verbal frequency scale is scored by assigning numerical values for every response. When always is answered, it can be given 5 points, 4 points for often, 3 points for sometimes, 2 points for rarely, and 1 point for never. The total score for the habit can be estimated through a total score by summating the scores of all the items. The higher score means high frequency of the habit, while the low score, of course, means lower frequency for the habit. So, sa mga pilianan sa example na I read a book, sa pilianan na always, often, sometimes, rarely, and never, depende kung pila ka points ang ihatag sa every term. And for example sa always, ang pinakadako and never ang pinakagamay. So whatever the result sa mga response, sa pagsum na ng ilang mga answers or response, mag-result ra gihapon sa sanan either kuan permi ba siya nagahimo na niini na habit or dili, and which is if the kuan score, of course permi, and if low kuan dili niya permi ginahimo ini na habit. Okay, since this is about frequency now, and with regards to what I have said earlier, na bisan ano rang ibutang sa value ng dito mga pilianan, but it should be organized. It should be lowest to greatest or greatest to lowest. Let's proceed to the linear numeric scale. Large array of ratings is provided among the participants within a continuum. The extreme points of the scale are provided with a descriptor. So this linear numeric scale is used for large number of individual or large group of individuals. This is mostly used for customer satisfaction survey. So this is with regards to as to how they feel to the company's product or how they value it as a customer. And we have here the example. For example, the rate the following personnel in your school on how valuable each one is to your learning. Use the scale below and write corresponding number for your answer. And from the given example, it is intended for the students within a school, and it is where they will rate how valuable the teacher, the academic counselor, to their school or for them as students. So with this, they will just write the number to the blank provided with accordance to the given scale. Then let us proceed to the semantic differential scale. The scale is used to describe the object or behavior by making use of two opposite adjectives. So this is about how a person describe or observe a particular person with regards to that person's behavior. And here's an example: rate the teaching of your teacher based on the characteristics provided. So from the example, so the students will rate a teacher characteristic, and from the scale, there are two opposite adjectives, which are the accommodating and alienating. Then the number two, there is patient and harsh. So the students will rate their teacher. So is my teacher accommodating ba or alienating, or patient ba or harsh? But whatever the students will rate to their teacher, it will still result to either positive or negative. Or from the example, patient ba or harsh. And from the patient, it has 5, and which is the highest, and harsh is 1, which is the lowest. So that is only for my part. Thank you, everyone.
Yung mga bata na hindi pa alam yung mga words or mga limited lang yung words na nalalaman nila. So through expressions, they may um, they may give their insights or impressions about that certain objects or word. So for examples, pizza. So the student or the learners might choose the happy or sad. It depends on the children's what they want. And that's examples of the graphic scales. And I will go into proceeds the next. So the next is how do we quantify results from the portfolios? So assessment data generated from portfolios can both be qualitative or quantitative. When assessing portfolio using quantitative approach, scales and rubrics can use. The scales are and other measures need to specify the criteria required in assessing portfolio. The quantitative is more important. The numbering or the give to get the percentage. Uh, and the qualitative assessment, the required criteria or narrative feedback provided to the learner, which that the more on the words that can give the students or the learners. That's the differences between the quanti and quali. Okay, so we're going to proceed. Next slides. So the following criteria can be used when assessing portfolios. So these are three that can be assessing portfolios. So the number one, completeness of the entire list. All the part of the portfolio listed by the teachers are present. Kung ano ang meron dun sa portfolio, dapat alam ng teachers. Hindi yung basta-basta ka lang lagay dyan, lagay doon, dapat alam din ng teachers kung ano talaga ang nasa portfolio mo at kompleto dapat ito. And then number two, accuracy of reflections. An authentic reflection is made for every in the portfolio. This could be authentic in reflections. With a portfolio, it, it can be used for student uh, give their reflections. So the three is organizations of the content, the proper sequence. So the portfolios can be classified according the lesson entire show, the final work of proper. So if kung ano talaga ang nilagay mo dyan, dapat yan lang. For example, math portfolios can classify the portfolios um, uh, math for example, so that the um, sa sa math doon na dapat portfolio doon dapat organized, and then dapat math lang, and then other is other subject would be other portfolios that can be separated, not the necessarily lagay ka lang ng lagay, di ba? So, you should know about the proper sequence of your portfolios. And next slides. So, how do we summarize result? When result of assessment are summarized, the teacher need to think about two things. That's the two things is the kind of scores that will be presented. The teacher may require have a raw score or percentage or transmuted grade, which they can the teacher will be know about the raw score percentage. It can excuse me, the student um, get that kind of percentage. He or she he get he get and then yeah, and scores will be presented. So the second one, the tabular or giving presentation scores can be presented in tabular or graphic. So I will give you an graph that can they that presented the table or graphical manner. This is the Here's the examples of the tabular or graphical manner. For example, the record of formative assessment in mathematics. Name of student, $1 course. So grade 3 student and subject is math. So the get um, 2, 2% or 2%, not uh, 2, 10 items, he get the two, two correct answer, which that um, can equivalent 20% on the other exercises, and 10 items equivalent of 100, and then he get a 4% 4% 4 correct answer, which is the considered 4%. So on the other exercise 3, 10 items, and he get a 7 correct answer, that that correct percentage percent of correct is 70%. That's the way of giving a percentage of the student. Okay, there's examples here. Multiplies one two digit numbers by 1000s, so he get a 3 out of 10 items. And then percent is 30%. That's the way of giving um, the given way of um, percents. So the guidelines in giving qualitative feedback is a qualitative, and the the consistent of feedback are based on within the confines of the criteria. The feedback are based on within the confines of criteria. Second, the feedback should inform the student on what to do to become better in their performance or behavior. The recommendation can be a suggested procedure, how to correct errors, the kind of thinking required to get the answer, where to locate the answer. Hence, the recommendations that can guide the better performance or behaviors of the students. So the third is that feedback should be immediate to correct the error. And fourth, the learners needs to provided with an opportunity to read or submit the task. If the student are you should give the opportunity to submit if ever that the task of the student is not really good, but if you could consider that resubmit the task of your students. So the five is detail the feedback if the learners need more information. Okay, number six is the feedback can be short if the learner know what to do. And the seven, lastly, feedback can come in form of verbal cues, gestures, so the learners not disrupted whole performing. That's the that's my part. And
So, to check the ideas you have acquired about the organizing assessment result, these questions must be answered. First question is the first question is, why do we need to qualify assessment result? Second, why do we need to couple quantitative assessment result with qualitative? The third, when you think is the appropriate time to give feedback. And lastly, why do we need to record the result of formative assessment? So the following are performance tasks. Provide a scale for the task by giving four criteria each and decide what types of skill is to be. Educators' input. In a study conducted by Magno and Amaris 2011 titled Teachers' Feedback Practices in Second Language Academic Writing and published in the International Journal of Education and Psychological Assessment, Volume 6, Issue 2, are the English teachers are commonly provide feedback on three areas when it comes to students' composition. Feedback focuses on form, content, and writing style.